Good evening, everybody. I would like to introduce you to Brandon Green. Brandon is a licensed Master's of Social Work. He currently works for the state of South Carolina. Brandon has begun a new business called Marketing Your Mission. He is going to talk with us tonight about what it means to market yourself, brand yourself, and what social media tools are out there that you can use and how to use them. Um, I'm going to ask that if you have pertinent questions, please put them in the chat box and I will repeat the question to Brandon. And if you would just make an ongoing list of your big questions, Brandon is going to hold about 20 minutes at the end of this presentation to begin to address the bigger questions. But as we go along, if you've got some burning questions that you want us to address, I am watching the chat box. And Brandon, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Like she said, my name is Brandon Green, and I'm a licensed master social worker. And when I was getting my master's degree, I discovered a real passion for nonprofit management, administration, and leadership, and an interest in fund development. And even though fund development might not seem like it goes along with social work, they really go hand in hand, because fund development, as we're going to see, is really all about relationship building. So I started learning a lot, and I'm still learning a lot. And when my parents told me that CBF was going to a raise your own support model, I started thinking about how I could share this new passion and skills with missionaries like you guys, and other people that need to get funding and might not know where or how to start. So that's why I created Mission Funding Partners. My goal here is to help make the funding process really as easy and simple to understand for you as possible. That way you can focus more on your mission while still getting the funding that you need to carry it out. So by breaking down the massive amount of information that's out there, because there really is a lot, and making it accessible to you, and by working with you to help you come up with a plan that's specific for your needs and that works for you, I really think that we can work together to meet your goals. So at the end of the webinar, I'm going to give you some more information about how you can access the resources that I'll be providing and how you can connect with me. But since we have a lot to get through, let's just dive right in. So like I said, we're going to go over a lot of information today. All of the topics that I'm going to touch on could be webinar series to themselves. Don't get discouraged. Don't get overwhelmed, because these are the types of information and resources that I'm going to be providing through Mission Funding Partners. So if there's something that you want to know more about in particular, just reach out to me, and maybe I've already got it in my queue of things to talk about, or if not, then I'll do my best to add it to that and get you the information that you need, because I really want to be a resource for you guys. My goal here is that by the end of the webinar, you should have a really clear understanding of what fund development is and why marketing is a key component of that, and that you should be able to create an initial marketing plan, so a launching point for your marketing strategy. There are some handouts that go along with this. I'm going to be sending them to you after the presentation, probably tomorrow. You're going to get a case study that we're going to talk about later. You're going to get an example, a template for an editorial calendar that we're also going to talk about later. And then you're also going to get a workbook. So it's a step-by-step guide that we're going to go through in kind of the second part of the webinar today. But it's really going to lay things out for you and help you work through that initial marketing plan. So I'd like to start off by talking about some terminology and some common misconceptions. First, I want to talk about fundraising and fund development. The two terms are often used interchangeably, and even though they're really related, there's some key differences between the two. So Lauren Anderson of Campbell & Company describes fundraising as transactional and development as relational. Fundraising is a key part of fund development, but fund development includes a lot more that we're gonna look at. And let's be honest, it's hard to ask for money. We're just gonna put that out there. It's uncomfortable, it's weird, it's awkward, especially if you're not used to it. And I bet a lot of you are worried or nervous just thinking about how you can go about doing that. But here's what I'm going to tell you. You're going to need to kind of shift your paradigm here, because fund development isn't about asking for money. It really has nothing to do with you or your organization. Fund development is entirely about the donor and how they connect with your mission. It's about identifying people that believe in what you're doing and engaging them with your mission and your organization. It's about building relationships based on trust. So yes, at some point, you're going to need to ask for donations. But I want you to start shifting the way you think about that from, I need you to support me or my organization, to, I have an opportunity for you to engage in something you care about. And that really changes things. That puts it in an entirely different light. It's no longer a request. It's an opportunity for this person to actually do something good. Which is why, for the sake of this conversation today, I don't want us to think of donors specifically. I want us to think of donors as supporters. These aren't just people that are giving you money. They're people that really care about the work that you're doing and want to support you in that. So to engage them and help them connect with your mission at an increasingly deeper level, there are three key things that need to work together. And these are the three categories of fund development. Fund development is only achieved when you're able to successfully merge marketing, fundraising, and monitoring and evaluation. I call marketing the relationship because it's really through marketing that you're going to be able to engage your current and future or prospective supporters. And I call fundraising the opportunity because you're not asking them to support you. Again, you're providing them with that opportunity to engage in a cause that they care about. So essentially, you're actually providing them with a service. And then there's monitoring and evaluation, which I call the return. How you're going to show that the work that you're doing is actually successful. Barry Rosenberg, who works for the Brown School of Social Work, says that people don't give because you have needs. People give because you meet needs. And so it's through monitoring and evaluation that you're really going to show them that you meet those needs. I'm sure you've probably heard about the 80-20 rule, or the Pareto Principle. In the context of fund development, it means that 80% of your revenue will come from 20% of your supporters. So that really shows that relationship building is the most important aspect of fund development. Growing relationships based on trust and continuing to engage your supporters will lead to increasing dividends. And this isn't a short-term fix. This is a long-term solution that will provide sustainable financial support to your cause. And to do this, you're going to have to market your mission. Marketing isn't about selling something. There's a book that I like called The Best Little Marketing Plan, and the author, Sean Harry, quotes his former grad school professor, who defines marketing as renting out space in the mind of the consumer, or for our purposes, the supporter. So marketing is about, again, building a relationship based on trust with the supporter. It's about continuing to engage them so that when the time comes that they want to support a good cause, when they want to do something of meaning, they're going to think of you because they know you, they trust you, they already have that relationship with you. And thanks to the internet, email, and social media, you now have this vast array of tools to engage your community of support, to reach out and to build those relationships and to build that trust. So to do this, you're going to need content. Andrew Davis of Monumental Shift says, content builds relationships, relationships are built on trust, and trust drives revenue. So according to the Content Marketing Institute, they have this long drawn out definition that basically all it's saying is that providing consistent, relevant, and valuable content will bring in new supporters and strengthen your relationship with current ones, ultimately increasing their engagement. So if your content is consistent, relevant, and valuable, you're going to get new supporters, you're going to strengthen those relationships that you already have, and eventually that's going to increase their engagement, which that could be funds, that could be volunteering, that could be coming to where you are and doing all different kinds of things. Basically, content is just like going to a church and talking about the work that you do. You know, when we were kids, at the end of each summer, my sister and I would always be able to recite by heart the 2 sermons that my parents used throughout the entire summer because we'd heard them so many times at so many different churches. And even though it was really annoying for us, it was an incredible opportunity for them to get the word out and share what they were doing and really connect with people that cared about their mission. This is exactly the same idea. It's just tweaked to work on the internet because the internet gives you this amazing ability to do just that, but on a much, much larger scale and much, much more often than visiting a church, you know, every other summer. So let's talk about some tools of engagement. Thanks to the wonder that is the internet, you have 2 incredibly effective and efficient tools to engage and grow your support network, and those are social media and email. Social media includes blogging, forums, social networks like Facebook and Twitter, media sharing sites like YouTube and Instagram, sites you probably might not use very often like Reddit, or even things like Yelp. That's all social media. And you might be asking yourself, why is this important to you? Well, I've got a lot of statistics up here, and I'm going to try and run through them pretty quickly to show you just the magnitude of people that are online and using social media. As of last year, 2/3 of the global population is online. 89% of the people in the United States are online. That's a 10-fold jump in just the past decade, and that number continues to rise very quickly. 76% of all adults that use the internet are active on social media. In 2013, 46% of online seniors were using social network sites. That's 27% of the total older adult population. Of all adults online, 72% are on Facebook, 23% are on Twitter, 28% on Instagram, 31% are on Pinterest, and 25% are on LinkedIn. Facebook has over 1.19 billion active users monthly and 728 million users daily. That's a lot of people. If Facebook were a country, it would be the world's 3rd largest and 3.5 times the size of the US population. That's insane. And 1 in 5 young adults of the ages 18 to 24 use Twitter daily, and Twitter's adding 300,000 users a day. And YouTube reaches more US adults ages 18 to 34 than any cable network currently. So it's pretty clear that people are on social media. So it's very, very likely that your support network is also on social media. They're sharing, they're posting, they're watching, they're reading. This is where they are. It's also evident in regards to communication that email is still a driving force in the world and will continue to dominate for years to come. Last year, there were 4.35 billion email accounts, and by 2019, there will be 5.59 billion. Around the world, there are 2.586 billion email users. And in 2014, 72% of US adults online used email weekly. In 2015, 82% of consumers said that email is their favorite form of communication. And in 2014, 88% of marketers said that email marketing was bringing them a positive return on investment. So the data is showing us that email is still a primary method of communication. So you might be asking yourself, which one is better? Which one should you use? Which one should you focus on? The answer is both. You really can't have one with the other. See, social media is how you're going to draw people in. It's how you can connect with them and kind of have that conversation. The shareable nature of social media allows you to interact with so many more people than ever before. In fact, a really great stat that I love is that 92% of consumers trust peer recommendations. So that means to you, when one of your followers shares one of your posts on social media and one of their followers sees it, the trust between you and them has already begun just because someone they know shared your post. Social media is how you get the word out about what you're doing. You use that to draw people to your content and get them to subscribe to your email list. And then you use email to further draw them in and to further connect with and engage them on a more regular basis. Heather Mansfield of nonprofit Tech for Good says that social media should be used to grow your email list. So I went over a lot of things. I gave you a lot of information, and I know that that can get a little overwhelming. There were a lot of numbers, and especially before, a lot of statistics. And I'm a social worker, and social workers really love case studies. So I wanted to give you a case study to really illustrate just how important all of this is and give you a really clear example of how it all comes together. So I wrote up a case study that talks about a fictional woman named Susan and a local soup kitchen. And it talks about how the soup kitchen engaged Susan and how eventually she becomes a supporter. We clearly don't have enough time to go over it together, but again, I will be sending that in your handout packet that I'll email to you, and I encourage you to read it later and keep in mind everything that we've talked about, because it really it illustrates everything and puts everything into perspective. Okay. So with that in mind, before we move into the next section where I'm really going to get into the nitty-gritty of creating a marketing plan, let's just do a quick recap. So the three categories of fund development are fundraising, marketing, monitoring, and evaluation. And we understand how they all play into each other and play an important role in any fund development strategy. Then we looked at kind of how important marketing your mission is. And we talked about how producing content should really be the driving force behind your marketing strategy. I gave you some statistics on why you should use social media and email to get your content out there and connect with people, which will further engage them in the work that you're doing. So now that we've put all of this into a larger context, we're going to go through creating your initial marketing plan. So this is really where the workbook's going to come into play. And so when you go through it, you're going to see a series of action steps. And so right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go through it here on the webinar and kind of lay out what your action steps are and give you a lot more detail about it, so that sometime in the near future, while all of this is still fresh in your mind, you can start working through it. And once you've completed it, you'll have laid out your initial marketing plan that'll help you start to engage with your supporters and build those relationships. And again, if at any time you're working through it, if you have any questions, you need any help, you want to bounce around any ideas, or you got this and this is easy for you and you want to go much more in depth in this, just reach out to me and I'd be more than happy to work with you. So I want to tell you about the ACE cycle. I believe that for each of the three categories of fund development, including marketing, you can create a plan using a three-part continuous cycle I call ACE. It's really simple and something that you do for most of the decisions you make already. But I just kind of laid it out, and it serves as a really great guide when creating any kind of plan, especially a marketing plan. So ACE stands for Analyze, Strategize, and Execute. We're going to go over each of these in detail in regards to marketing, and I'm going to give you examples and advice on how to go through each step. But generally speaking, you want to start by analyzing the situation that you're in. And then based off of that, you want to develop a strategy that works within that situation. And then you just want to execute that strategy. So in marketing your mission, this is really going to help ensure that you engage your support network where they are, and you build that relationship and that trust. Now, it's a cycle because you're going to need to update your plan. You know, once you've executed it, you'll need to go back and analyze it, looking at what you've done, how it's worked, and then you want to strategize based off of that new information, and then execute the new plan, and then you analyze again, and so on and so forth. So when my daughter, Ava, was just learning how to use utensils, and she'd sit at the table and try to use utensils by herself, you could see her going through this process in her tiny mind. And she'd start by analyzing the situation, right? She'd say, do I have a fork or a spoon? Okay, what's on my plate? I've got a spoon and I've got oatmeal. And then based off of that, she'd strategize and come up with a plan. Oatmeal and a spoon, so I should probably scoop and not stab. And then she'd go for it and execute the plan she came up with. She'd scoop it up, she'd head for her mouth, and then, of course, dump it all over her lap. So she'd reassess and analyze again. The oatmeal ended up in her lap because she didn't keep the spoon straight. So she'd create a strategy based off of that information and then execute that plan, and so on and so forth until she's finished her oatmeal. So you're going to do that, but for marketing, not for eating oatmeal. So the marketing ACE cycle. Let me start out by saying that this is going to be a good amount of work going through this workbook. Setting this up and putting everything in place isn't necessarily going to be easy, but the more work you do on the front end, the easier it's going to be for you moving forward. So if you put the time and effort in getting everything ready, your execution part of the ACE cycle is going to be really, really simple. And you won't need to spend all day writing emails or on social media because you're going to have it all ready to go. So if you take the time to really go through each of these steps, when you get to the actual execution part, you're not going to get overwhelmed because you'll have a plan and you'll know what you need to do and you'll be prepared for it. So we start with analyzing. And the first thing we're going to analyze is your brand. When you think of branding, you're probably thinking of a logo or a font type or a color scheme. You might be thinking of like the Nike swoosh or McDonald's golden arches. But before the Nike swoosh became the Nike swoosh, it was just some weird mark that somebody drew. And before the golden arches became the golden arches, it was just the yellow M. So a logo can be useful, and a color scheme can be useful. What that does is that helps people to identify something and immediately associate it with you. But that's not the important part of branding. The important part of branding is how they feel when they think of you. I'm going to say that one more time. The important part of branding is how someone feels when they think of you. Dr. Jackie Freiberg says that a brand is the promise of an experience. So I don't want you to think of your brand as your logo, but more the impact you have on people when you come into contact with them. It's the impression you leave after you've touched their lives somehow. And you don't need a logo to do that. What you need are clearly defined values. Your brand has to be founded in a defined value system. And these are what's going to guide all the decisions that you make. They would have already guided you in every decision you've made in regards to your ministry, your family life, everything. And they're what's going to guide you as you market your mission. So you already have values, and you might not have sat down and written them down, but you have them. So therefore, you actually already have a brand. The values you already have, those are your actual values, the ones that have been guiding you. But you might also have aspirational values, something that you really want to guide you but just hasn't up until now. It's important to differentiate the two because you don't want to say that you stand for a certain value and then not actually live up to that, because that'll reflect poorly on you and have a negative impact on your brand. All of this is developed over time. You grow as a person, you grow in your profession and your faith, and your values grow and change with you. And that's a good thing. But I really want to challenge you to routinely sit down and evaluate where you stand. I want to challenge you to look at yourself and the values that you believe are important. Are you using these to guide your work? When someone comes into contact with you and then is given a list of your values, can they say, yeah, they definitely had all of these? So the first part of your workbook, the first action step is to look at a list of values that I provide in the workbook and choose your 4 top ones, because you're going to need these values and you're going to need to define them as you create your marketing plan, because you need to understand your brand. So the list isn't exhaustive. So if you need to write one that's not on there, that's fine. But you use this information to move forward and fill out the rest of your plan. And as you start to create content and engage your supporters, you want to make sure that you stay true to your brand. And now you're going to have this list there, so you can really do that. Doing this is much more important than any logo or color scheme that you could create. But if you still want to learn about logos and color schemes and stuff like that, let me know, and I can definitely put something together for you. So next, you're going to want to look at where your support network is. As a social worker, there's something that we social workers like to say a lot, and it's that we need to meet the client where they are. And the same applies to marketing to your support network. You need to meet them where they are. They're not going to come to you. You have to go to them. Now, you'll definitely need to be using email because of all the statistics we saw. And it's a pretty safe bet to say that most of your supporters are going to be on Facebook. But for instance, you don't want to also be sharing all of your content on Pinterest when your target audience is on Twitter, because that's just a waste of your time.
Brandon.
So your next, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I want to ask just a quick clarification about email. When you're talking about email, are you talking about personal email accounts where we email back and forth with somebody, or are you talking about something like MailChimp or Constant Contact?
I'm talking about something like MailChimp, and that's what's really going to kind of open that door for communication. And I'm going to give more information about email marketing and what you should be using. So we'll definitely get into that in a little bit. That answer your question? I'm going to assume it did. So your next action step is one that'll really be critical in figuring out how to move forward in your marketing strategy. This is a really important step, and it's not always the easiest, but you're going to need to poll your supporters. So before I talk about how to do that, I know we've kind of talked about supporters and donors, but I want to look at what your support network actually is. Over the years, each of you, I know, has amassed a group of people that support you in some way, shape, or form. You know, maybe there's a small Bible study group somewhere that always sends you a Christmas card, or maybe you already have an email list that you send updates to. Maybe there's a church that you visit regularly that's always supported your ministry. And, you know, they might even have a social media presence that you can go ahead and tap into. Or if you're already on social media, say you already have a Facebook account, like I know that your team already has several social media accounts. Well, everyone that follows you or your team on social media currently is a part of your support network. And all of the people in your support network are potential donors. Now, some may have already given to you or are currently supporting you financially, and some might not end up supporting you financially at all, and that's okay, because all of these people in your support network care about you and the work that you're doing and want to be engaged. They want to see your content, and they can share your content. So remember, this isn't about asking for money. This is about engaging your support network where they are and building relationships based on trust by providing consistent, relevant and valuable content.
Brandon, we have a specific question here. Just they want to know if a little bit later on in the presentation, will you speak more about how to effectively use these networks? And the question is specifically, will you deal with LinkedIn?
I do not talk about LinkedIn. I do talk about Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, but I can make a note to talk about LinkedIn and to write a specific blog post about LinkedIn moving forward. But I don't address it in this webinar because LinkedIn is more of a professional site. It's sometimes used in the nonprofit realm. There are definitely nonprofits that are on LinkedIn. But that's more for growing a professional network, not necessarily for growing a network of support.
Okay, and let me just say, for those of you who have big questions, especially as you present them here on the chat, part of what we will do after this presentation, Brandon will do a series of blog posts that deal with more specific questions, such as this question about LinkedIn. So don't think that this webinar is the beginning and end of what we're doing. We're going to have blog posts that will deal with some of the bigger questions.
Yeah, so I'm going to be talking about, this webinar is kind of going to be my calendar for the foreseeable future to create blog posts, because everything that I'm talking about I'm just touching on because we don't have enough time to go into everything into detail. So again, go to my website, reach out to me if you have specific things that you want to know about that we don't talk about today, and I'll definitely do my best to write something up for you to give you that information that you need.
Brandon, just say your website one more time and I'll put it in the chat so they have it.
It's all at the end of the PowerPoint, and I'm going to send everybody the PowerPoint and everything.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
So yeah, you'll have it. So again, to engage your support network, you're going to need to find out where they are. So you're going to need to ask them questions, and this is your action step. What 2 social media sites are you most active on? Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, or maybe they don't even use social media. And you can do this in several ways. You can just have a conversation with them. You can post a question on a social media network that you already use. You can send it out to an email list you already have. But I think the best way to do this would be to create a survey on SurveyMonkey. It's free to use. If you don't already have an account, just sign up. And then you just create a 1-question survey with a multiple choice answer where the participant can select 2 or 3 responses. And then you send this out to your email list. You post it on the social networking sites you already belong to. And you're going to get some really, really good feedback and some really good data. And potentially, this might be something that you could even do as a team, because I would think that most of your support network is going to really be similar in demographics and similar on kind of the networks that they use. So, maybe one of you could put together the survey and then could share it through your team's social networks, and then, all of you could then share it through your own personal networks, and that just gives even more data points and even more really good information for everybody. And so then once you get the data back in the workbook, you're going to be able to write down in order the 2 primary social networks that are used by your supporters. And knowing this is really going to allow you to get the most bang for your buck, so to speak. Which kind of leads us into our next part.
Brandon, another request: when you do a blog post, could you do a blog post about how Google Plus can be used?
Yeah, I can do a blog post about Google Plus. That's fine. Again, if you guys want to write these down and just let me know at the end of the webinar or send them to me, I'd be happy to look at them. One quick thing about Google Plus: Google Plus is really on the decline. You're not going to find a lot of people that are using Google Plus. So what I would suggest is to do this poll and to see where your support network is, and then focus on those, because that's really what's going to help you reach the people that matter, because you're not going to have time to do a million different profiles, which leads us perfectly into analyzing your time. Social media really doesn't need to be something that weighs you down. You don't need a Facebook page, a Twitter account, an Instagram, a Pinterest page, a YouTube channel, and a LinkedIn profile. If the only thing that you did was social media, then maybe you might be able to maintain all of those accounts. But it's not. You guys do a ton of other really awesome work. So it's not feasible for you to maintain all of these different accounts. If you can only maintain 2 accounts, then you can only maintain 2 accounts. If you can only keep up with 1, then you can only keep up with 1. So once you know where your supporters are, you're going to know which 1 or 2 you need to be on and you need to focus on. But you're also going to need to take stock of where you are as well. You need to look at the amount of time that you think you can spend working on this. And remember, the more you do up front, the easier it'll be moving forward. So, for instance, if you spend a day or 2 at the beginning of each month writing most of your blog posts, creating your editorial calendar, which we're going to go over, going ahead and putting together a few images to share on social media, maybe outlining your email newsletter, then you already have a solid amount of content that you can put out there as the month goes along. And then if you set aside 1 hour a day to work on getting your content out there and engaging people, you'll really be able to gain traction. And it doesn't even have to be an hour a day. It can be an hour every other day, 30 minutes a day, 1 hour on Monday, 1 on Friday. It really doesn't matter. The important part is that you do something and that it be consistent. Consistency is the key. If you push yourself to do too much, especially in the beginning, you're going to burn out real quick. And if you're not consistent, you're not going to be able to engage people, and you're not going to be able to build that trust. So
okay, everybody, I just hope that you hear what Brandon has just said, because we've got some chat going back and forth here about Brandon. You have just set people free by telling them they didn't have to do everything, but what they do needs to be consistent. So,
exactly.
Yeah, that's great.
Remember the definition of content marketing is that consistent, relevant, and valuable content will eventually lead to further engaging your supporters. It's all about consistency. Don't think you need to have a Google Plus account, because honestly, you're not going to have many supporters that are going to be on Google Plus, but you're probably going to have a ton that are on Facebook. So focus your energy on Facebook, provide them with more consistent content, and that's how you're going to engage people. It's really, again, about getting the most bang for your buck and not pushing yourself to do too much. It's just like doing anything. If you go too hard at it, you're going to burn out quickly. So stay within your means. And so that being said, your next action step is going to be to lay out a weekly schedule that works for you. So in the workbook that I'm going to send you, you're going to see a weekly calendar. And in that calendar, I want you to write down how much time you're going to spend on marketing your mission each day. You know your schedule best. You break it up however you want to break it up. My suggestion would be to start with 9 hours a week. Now that might sound like a lot, but in the end it's really small. And you want to keep it small, and you want to keep it simple. And if you can't do 9 hours, you can't do 9 hours. Consistency is the key. And remember, the more you do up front, the less you'll have to do throughout the week. So for instance, maybe on Monday, you spend 4 or 5 hours working on marketing your mission, doing most of the legwork for the week. You know, that's when you're writing the blog post. That's when you're putting the images together. And then Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, you spend an hour and a half each day. And that's where you're going to start sharing that content and engaging with people. Something I don't want you to do, though, and this is really, really important, I don't want you to fall into the social media trap, because everybody falls into the social media trap. It's really, really easy to just waste hours on social media without even really noticing that you're doing it. Don't think that you have to respond to every message you get right away. Don't think that you need to constantly be checking Twitter and retweeting and favoriting. You need to be intentional. That's why you're setting up the weekly calendar. The times that you set aside to work on marketing your mission should be the times you work on marketing your mission. It can be really, really easy to get overwhelmed with all of the information that's coming at you. If you start responding to things as they come, retweeting randomly without purpose, all of those things, that's going to seem erratic to your followers. So in the next section, we're going to talk about how to create a strategy. If you set times to work on marketing your mission and you follow the strategy, you're going to show your followers, your email subscribers, your supporters that consistency. That's really important to help build that trust, to help build those relationships, because that's really what we're working towards. So now let's move into the strategy portion of the ACE cycle. And the first thing we're going to think about are purpose-driven goals. Now, goals are a really important key in creating your plan. Goals help you focus your strategy and guide you as you implement it. They also help you measure how you're doing. They tell you where you need to go and if things aren't going as planned. But goals aren't enough.
Another question that has popped up, and just to basically add to the list, they're wondering about some of the platforms like Hootsuite, you know, and you have Social Sprout and stuff like that, and just how does that help you in your strategizing, etc.?
I touch on that in literally the next slide. I'll touch on it. I don't go into a ton of detail, but there will definitely be more posts. And I don't go into a ton of detail because I'll be honest with you, I don't have a ton of experience using them. And so I want to use them more and try out different ones so that I can give you more feedback on that. So going back to purpose-driven goals, goals aren't enough. John Gordon says that the truth is numbers and goals don't drive people. People with a purpose drive the numbers and achieve goals. He continues to say that research clearly shows that true motivation is driven by meaning and purpose rather than extrinsic rewards, numbers, and goals. So when you're creating your strategy, you need to define your purpose and what you're committed to do to achieve that, because this is what's going to help drive you and sustain you as you work towards that goal. If you're not really into this whole marketing and social media thing, then you can set goals, but if you don't understand what your purpose is, and if you don't have commitments to achieve that purpose, and you don't think about those and write those down, then you're not going to reach your goals. So knowing not only what your goal is, but why you have that goal in the first place and what you're committed to do will not only help you reach your goal, but surpass it. So your action step for this section is that I really want you to think about your purpose. I want you to think about why you're doing this, and not superficially. The superficial answer is, I'm doing this because I need to get funding, right? Well, we know that. That's why we're here. I want you to go deeper than that. Why is this? Why do you need funding? Why are you doing this to get the funding? What is the funding going towards? You need to go deep. You need to push yourself and then write it down. There's a section in the workbook for you to write down your purpose. And then I want you to decide on what you're committed to do and really, really commit to it. Are you committed to trying something new? Because I know that this is new for most of you. Are you committed to learning? Are you committed to really giving this your all and actually giving it a real shot? Whatever it is that you're committed to do, write that down. And then I want you to write out 3 SMART goals. I'm sure most of you have probably heard of SMART goals before, but just to review, SMART's an acronym for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-based. So whatever goal you set, it should have all of these characteristics. An example of a SMART goal would be, I will write 2 blog posts a week for the next 30 days. And then understanding that writing these blog posts is directly related to your purpose and that it falls within what you're committed to do is going to push you and sustain you to keep that up. Also, on a side note, you don't need to be writing 2 blog posts a week, just so you know. Don't worry. If you can't write 2 blog posts a week and you can only write 1 a week, or you can only write 1 every other week, then stick with that. But just make sure you're consistent and make sure that you have SMART goals. Okay, so now let's talk about your toolbox. So let's look at some different tools that you want to use to get your content out there and start connecting with and engaging your supporters. So first things first, you're going to need a blog. This is where your content's going to be located. This is going to be the source of everything that you share. If you think of your entire marketing platform as a tree, your blog is its roots. Everything you do is going to grow from there. This is where you're going to post your content. Your social media will drive supporters back to your blog because you'll be sharing your blog posts. Your email is going to link to your blog posts. It really all boils down to your blog. That's where you're trying to drive that traffic. That's where you're really providing that valuable, relevant, and consistent content. Now, there are a ton of free blogging websites that you can sign up for. You can pay for nicer upgrades if you want to, but really there are a lot of perfectly good free options. Personally, right now, I'm using Weebly. I really like Weebly, but if you just do a Google search for blog platforms, I mean, you'll find a ton of options. WordPress is definitely the most used. I feel like it tends to cost a bit more because you have to get a really nice WordPress website, you usually have to pay a little bit. And Weebly is really sufficient for me right now.
And let me just say that in my experience, I haven't used Weebly, but WordPress is, for me, less user-friendly than some of the others.
Yeah, I've heard that too. I've heard for WordPress that you usually would want a designer to help you design your WordPress site. And that's not something that you guys really need to get into. Weebly is really intuitive. It's just a drag and drop model. So it just makes sense for me. I understood it very quickly, and I think you will too. And if you want to try Weebly and you want some more information or some tips or some help working through that, then again reach out to me and I can help you through that. I also know that you guys have a website. Does your website have any blogging features?
Hey, Mitch, Brandon just said that if we set up a website, he'll help us with it.
Yeah, so I don't know if your team website has blogging features. If it does, then you definitely should use that. If you create your own side blog, then you should absolutely put that on your website as well. So second, after your blog, you're clearly going to need to use social media. So this, along with email, is how you're going to share your content and engage your supporters. So you're going to want to make sure that you have all of those accounts set up, in the beginning, on the front end. It goes back to this idea of doing more on the front end will make it easier for you moving forward. So whether it's Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever the 1 or 2 accounts that you decided is really going to best reach your support network, you're going to need to set them up. So a piece of advice when you're setting them up is that you're going to want consistency across all platforms. So say you're using Twitter and Facebook. You really want to make sure that your profile pictures and your cover photos are the same on both accounts. You want to make sure that your bios, even though they don't need to be exactly the same, should essentially say the same thing. So your goal in doing this is so that your support network can easily recognize you across platforms. So say somebody follows you on Twitter, but they don't follow you on Facebook, but one of their friends does, and they see a post from you, they're immediately going to recognize that profile picture and go and follow you on Facebook. so that now you have Twitter and Facebook to engage that one supporter. And then another piece of advice is to take advantage of automation. And so this is where Hootsuite and Buffer and Sprout and things like that come into play. So in the next section, we're going to talk about creating an editorial calendar where you're actually going to plan out your posts. And there's software, social media management software and services that allow you to schedule those posts to social media. So basically, how it works is you could plan out your posts for the week and how you want to share your content. You could schedule them to go out whenever you want them to go out and then not worry about it again until you schedule the next batch. So again, it goes back to doing more on the front end so that that makes everything easier moving forward. There are two main ones that can do this for you. One is called Hootsuite, the other is Buffer. They're both really similar in what they have to offer. They have some key differences here and there. As of now, particularly as you're just starting out, both have free options that should satisfy your needs. So my suggestion is to start with Hootsuite, to just try it out, play around with it, see if you like it, see if it helps, and then if that doesn't work, give Buffer a shot. Do the same thing, and then if that doesn't work, give another one a shot. And again, since this is something that you guys, asked me about specifically, I'll do my best to write something up and put some resources out there for you.
Brandon, let me just say to my team here that I tried both. I did Buffer first, then I did Hootsuite. My problem with Buffer is that after you post so many things for it to automate sending, you couldn't post anymore. Whereas with Hootsuite, I could post however much I wanted. I wasn't limited to the number of posts, limited to the number of platforms, but not limited to the number of posts. So I used Buffer for about 6 months, and I've been with Hootsuite for a few years now.
Yeah, Hootsuite is definitely up there and is the top one. But Buffer is, a lot of people use Buffer, but I think once you get into the paid services, once you start paying for them, that's when the key differences really start, and that might be when Buffer really kind of takes over. And so the third thing that you're going to need in your toolbox is an email marketing tool. So no, you can't use Outlook. You can't use your personal email. You're going to need something that will allow you to create and manage lists, that will allow you to put together templates and send out some automated responses, to get people to put stuff on your website where people can subscribe to your newsletter and it's not just inundating your email inbox. So you're going to need MailChimp. I'm not even going to suggest that you use anything else because MailChimp is really the best starting point. They have a really solid free option that will allow you to do pretty much everything you need to do at this point.
Let me say to our team as well, you all paid for a while for us to use Constant Contact. Not only was it not user-friendly, it wasn't worth the money we were spending on it. And I spent a small amount of money and had somebody make my templates for MailChimp. And now everything I do with MailChimp is free, but because my templates are very professional, we have had a much better response. So you might spend a little money on the front end, but it is worth it in the long run.
Yeah, the Constant Contact is usually used as the MailChimp alternative, but I've heard those same complaints, is that it's not as user friendly, and you really, MailChimp is just, it's absolutely the way to go. So the first part, your next action step is a two-parter. And the first part is that you're going to need to go and set up all of these accounts. You're going to need to set up your blog, your social media, if you choose to use Hootsuite, set up your Hootsuite, MailChimp. You really need to make sure that these are ready to go. And now, in this step, is the time to do that. That way, once you've got some content and you're ready to get it out there, everything's prepared. This is really going to make it much easier for you and less stress-inducing once you start getting content out there. And second, you're going to need to go ahead and write your bio. So your bio is a short description of who you are and what you do. Each social media site and your blog is going to have a space for you to share your bio. Some might have just a little space, like Twitter. Twitter, you can only do so many characters. Some might let you write almost as much as you want, like Facebook. I'd suggest starting with like a 2-paragraph bio, but the most important part is that the first sentence of your bio should be a really, really clear snapshot of who you are and what you do, and that can serve as your short bio. So you can just pull that for sites that don't let you write a lot. You've already got that one sentence. I could give a whole webinar on just how to write bios. I'm also kind of making the assumption that some of you might already have one, but if you're interested in learning more about how to write a bio, let me know. I've got some resources that I can share with you, some good blog posts and websites that talk a lot about it. But again, if you take the time to do all of this now, to really do all the prep work now, you're really going to be very glad that you did moving forward. Okay, so I've talked about this a lot and mentioned it several times, this editorial calendar. So an editorial calendar is going to be one of your greatest brainstorming tools and is going to serve as a guide for putting out your content. So it's where you're going to list when you're going to post something, what it is that you're going to post, where it'll be posted, and who's responsible to write it and to post it. So you sit down at the beginning of the week, beginning of the month, a quarter, 6 months, a year, however long that you want to plan everything out that you're going to put out. And once you do that, you can work ahead by getting your content ready using your automation tools. You can schedule it to come out whenever you want. This way, you're prepared and not stressed trying to come up with content to put out at the last minute. You've already got it listed and you know where it's going to go, when it's going to go out, and what it is. So there are a million different editorial calendars out there that you can download. If you just do a Google search, you're going to find a ton. Some of them get really extensive and lay out things like search engine optimization and metadata and a ton of other things that you really don't even need to know exist right now. But for me, there are a few really key components that all editorial calendars should have. So first, they should have a space for you to write topic ideas for your blog posts. You'll need to clearly define when your content will be posted as well. So that means you need to go ahead and lay out the day of the week, the date, and even the time you're going to be getting the content out there. You're going to need to know exactly what it is you'll be posting. So you need to say what type of post it is, whether it's a social media post, a blog post, or your email newsletter. You're also going to need to describe what it is you'll actually be posting. So if it's a blog post and you have an idea for a title, go ahead and write that in there. If it's a social media post, explain what it is you're going to be talking about. If it's your newsletter, go ahead and think about what you want to highlight in there and write it down. And then you're going to need to give it a label as well. So there you would just write down what specific topic this touches on or what category it falls under. So what this is going to do is this is going to help you when it comes to organizing your content and allow you to search it much more easily. On most blogs, too, they allow for you to input a category so that people can search your blog posts. And that might seem tedious in the beginning, but once you start having a lot of content, you're going to be really glad you took the time to do that. And your supporters will be really glad because it'll make your blog much more searchable. And then you're going to need to know exactly where you'll be posting this content. So you want to write down what site you'll be posting it on, like Facebook, your blog, Twitter, or if you're using MailChimp to get your newsletter out. And then you're going to need to know who's responsible for creating the content and posting it. So your action step for this section is to simply sit down and put together your editorial calendar. And I say simply, even though I know that it's a daunting task, and that it might seem difficult, but I've helped you out, and I'm providing you with a template editorial calendar for you to get started. So in that editorial calendar, it'll have the description of each section and also has an example to kind of help guide you as you fill it out. So you're going to want to start by jotting down some ideas for blog posts or any other content ideas you might have, and then sit down with your editorial calendar and an actual calendar and work through it. And if you've completed every step until this point, and then you fill out your editorial calendar, you're going to be ready to execute your plan. But before we move into the execution, I want to give you some more tips on using the calendar. So first of all, you're going to want to make it your own. If you can't tell by now, I'm all about making this stuff work for you, because if it doesn't work for you, then you're not going to do it. So play around with the calendar. Modify the template. It's just a template. You can do whatever you want with it. You don't even have to use the template. You can write all of this on a piece of paper, or pull out an actual calendar and do it on that. Just try different things, explore things, figure out what works best for your work and organization style. It's really not a one-size-fits-all type thing. You need to find the best way to organize your content for you. Second, start out with your blog post. Remember how I said your blog is like the roots of your marketing tree and everything sprouts from there? Well, the idea is that you want to use and reuse the information from a blog post as social media content, as content for your email newsletter. So don't be afraid to promote your blog post several times on social media. Share, share, and share again. You could get 2 or 3 Facebook posts out of one blog post. One blog post could give you like 5 or 6 tweets. It depends on the content in the blog post, but you really want to milk it for all it's worth. So say you've got 2 really awesome quotes and a really great statistic in one blog post. Use each quote and that statistic as separate social media posts sent out at different times to promote the one blog post. So there you've already got solid content in your blog post, and then you've got 3 ways of sharing that. And then if on top of that you add it to your newsletter, that's 4 ways of driving people to that one blog post, which really is just getting them to engage with content and engage with what you're doing. Don't worry about over-promoting your posts and annoying people. Okay, as long as you're not sending out the exact same tweet or the Facebook post or whatever it is over and over and over again, your supporters are going to be engaged, because people aren't on social media at the same time of day. They might not see your first 2 posts about this new blog entry, but then see the third. Or the first one might not really speak to them, but the second one just grabs them immediately and draws them in, and they click on that instantly. You just have to play around with it, especially with the times. You're going to need to send posts out at different times of day, particularly when you're just starting out. After a while, you could use analytics to see when the best times are that people are, clicking on your content and engaging with your content. But for now, just try out different things. And use your automation tools to set those to go out at different times. So you can send a post out on Monday morning, and then maybe a post on Wednesday at 6, Thursday at 3:30, and Sunday at 7 a.m. Just try to figure out what works best for your support network. It's going back to meeting them where they are. And again, consistency builds trust, and that helps you grow that relationship between you and your supporters. So if you come out with 2 blog posts one week, and then the next you don't have any, and then the following week you've got 1, you're going to really come across as erratic. You need to be intentional about getting a steady stream of new content out there. And you also want to make sure that your newsletters come out at the same time. Your supporters should know when to expect them. That doesn't mean that you can't send them emails in between, but your main newsletter, it should come out at around the same time. To start, I would say you could send 1 a month. So and you should use the content from your blog in your newsletter. So if you write one blog post a week, right, and then you send one newsletter a month, you've easily got 4 topics in your email, one for each blog post. And I'm going to go over some tips for your newsletter in a little bit, so we're going to come back to that. The last tip I have in regards to your editorial calendar is to pay attention to the actual calendar and relate your content to special events and international days like World AIDS Day, World Refugee Day, holidays, etc. So my wife is a medical case manager who primarily works with HIV/AIDS patients. And if her organization were producing content around December 1st, most of their content would be geared towards World AIDS Day. Or say there's an organization that tackles hunger. Around the summertime, they might write a blog post describing how children in situations of poverty are usually hungry over the summer because they're not getting their school lunches. So just pay attention to the time that you're in. Seize those opportunities. Use those days, those holidays, whatever it may be, to keep your content relevant. Relevancy and consistency are really important when it comes to building that trust with your support network. So let's get into how you would actually carry out this plan. So you've analyzed your situation, you've created a strategy based on that information, and now you're going to carry that out. You're going to execute it. Since everything stems from your blog, we're going to start there. And just kind of as a side note, I want to point out that a lot of my information for this particular topic comes from Michael Hyatt. He's a blogger and a productivity guru, has some really great content that's very practical, easy to read, easy to understand. If you haven't, already checked them out, if you get a chance, definitely do that. So before writing, while writing, and while editing your blog post, you always want to keep 3 questions in mind. These questions are going to help guide you and organize your content as you write. First, what do you want your audience to know? Think about what information you're trying to pass along. What's important for them to understand? Second, how do you want your audience to feel? Now, this is a key question. Maya Angelou said it best when she said, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. This is what's going to stick in people's minds. This is what's going to keep bringing them back and eventually move them to action. Which brings us to the last question. What do you want your audience to do? So this is the call to action. You've given them the information that you need. You've made them feel something about it. And now what do you want them to do about it? This could be asking them to donate, or something as simple as sharing the post or commenting on it. Or you could send them to another site or a link within your blog, within your website, or you could have them sign a petition. Whatever it is, you just want to give them something concrete that they can do to take action. So those are the key guiding questions that you should remember when writing your blog post. But there are also some key components that every blog post should have. You want a compelling title. You want something that will immediately draw people in. And if you can make it about them, that's even better. Someone might pass over a title that says, 5 reasons for homelessness. But they're going to be much more interested in a post titled 5 ways you could end up homeless, right? That changes things for them. They're drawn into that. You also want a relevant image. Images not only draw readers into your post, but it catches their eye. It makes them think. Use your own pictures from your work, as much as you can. But if you need some stock photos, there are sites like Pixabay and freeimages.com that have a really good selection of free pictures that don't require any attribution. So you don't have to say that you got them from a specific place. You also want to use an anecdote or an illustration. Basically, you want to use a story. You can give your readers a million stats, but the fact of the matter is people connect and respond to stories. The story will help make your audience feel what you want them to feel. That's why I'm giving you a case study, because I gave you all of those stats and you can look at that, but the story is really going to help you connect with what I'm trying to say. So I have some final tips for you as you start to write. You want to keep it short. It's not a dissertation. Occasionally, if you've done a lot of research and you want to write a longer post, that's fine. Write a longer post. But don't have every post you write be an essay, because people aren't going to read it. Generally, Michael Hyatt suggests that you keep your post to around 500 words. You can go over, you can go under, that's fine. 500 is just a good starting point. People are consuming content very differently today. Instead of newspapers and magazines, now we've got smartphones and tablets, right? This has not only reduced our attention span, but it's forced us to take in these massive amounts of information all day long. Like, stuff is constantly being thrown at us, which means that people aren't actually reading your post. I'm just going to be very honest. They're not going to read your post. They're going to skim it. And that might be hard to hear, and you might think, well, what's the point of me writing all of this if they're not even going to read it? But what you need to understand is that it's not that they aren't reading it, it's that they're reading it differently. Technology is changing the way that we read. So you need to be able to tap into that knowledge and make it easier for them to skim and still get the message across to them. Still make it so that they can comprehend the message. If you don't do this, you're going to keep your readers away. You're not going to be able to engage your supporters. It goes back again to meeting your supporters where they are. And they're on their phones. They're on their tablets, because that's just the world that we live in today. So to do this, you're going to want to make sure that you use short paragraphs, short sentences, a lot of bolded headlines, a ton of lists and bullet points, and simple words. Okay, those are some key things that if you put in your blog post, it's going to make it much easier for people to skim, because people just want to consume the information quickly and move on to the next thing, because they've got so many things to move on to. Really understanding this is going to allow you to make your blog and your content more attractive to today's readers and to engage them much more. And so finally, another little tip is you want to use internal links. So you don't need to reiterate a ton of stuff in every blog post. So if you touch on a similar topic in another post, reference it and link to that post. If you talk about an event in a post, link to that event page. Use internal links to guide people and send people around your website and get them involved even more. So if you couldn't guess it, your action step for this section is to write your first blog post. So you want to look at your editorial calendar, you want to pick a topic, and use these tips to guide you as you write, and use those guiding questions to guide you as you write. So let's talk about social media and how to go about sharing your content. First of all, images are key on social media. You're going to need to start creating and sharing images. Now, entire courses are taught on this, so I'm not going to even go into what makes a good image. But my suggestion to you is to go to canva.com, canva.com. So this is a great website that offers a ton of really easy-to-use free design tools. They've got preset sizes, options for the different types of images you'll be creating, like blog headers, social media posts, and they use this drag and drop model that's really intuitive and easy to use. And there's a ton of really great information on there. They have this really large library of short but very informative trainings on how to design all different kinds of things, including images. So visit the site, set up a free account, and start to play around with it. Do not try to be perfect from the start, because you're not going to be perfect from the start. Just keep trying new things and seeing what works. Just put different things out there and see what gets you more engagement, what gets talking. So social media doesn't just allow for engagement with your supporters, it also lets you engage with other organizations, or other missionaries that are working in a similar field as you. Don't be afraid to follow them. Don't be afraid to engage with them and even share their content. As long as their content is relevant to what you're doing and it's accurate, it'll reflect positively on you if you share it. You never know. They might in your content as well, and that's what's going to help you expand your reach and grow your support network. Another benefit is that you can look at how they're sharing their content and draw ideas from them on how to share yours. And I know that we've talked about this already, but it's so important that I really want to mention it again. It's easy to get overwhelmed when you're on social media. You don't know where to start, you don't know who to answer, you don't know what to do, but to not fall into that trap, you need to remember to be intentional about your time. Don't waste time scrolling through Facebook with no purpose. Don't think you need to respond to every tweet directed at you as soon as it pops up on your phone. Use social media to your benefit. Don't let it control you. And don't try to do too much, especially in the beginning. If you push yourself too hard or you set unrealistic goals, you're going to fail, and that's not going to look good on you. It's not going to reflect positively on your brand. On the other hand, if you start small, you're giving yourself room to grow, and that's what we want, right? We want growth. Stick with the time you set to work on your social media, the time that you put in the weekly schedule in the Analyze section. This is going to keep you from getting overwhelmed. And another suggestion I'd make, and you can take this and use it or not, but I would suggest turning off all social media notifications on your phone. That's something that I've done that's really helped me not get overwhelmed, and also not waste a ton of time just doing nothing on social media. Because when I see a notification, I'll pull it up and I'll look at it, but then I'll go to the Facebook homepage and then I'll just start scrolling through and watching videos that really aren't serving any purpose, but to just watch videos. So I'd really suggest turning off the notifications. And since you already know when you're going to work on social media, there's a pretty simple rule to follow that'll help you use that time efficiently and effectively. And it's called the rule of thirds. So a third of your time should be spent sharing your own content. A third of your time should be spent sharing others' content. And a third of your time should be spent engaging with people. So this means if you give yourself, for instance, 1 hour to work on social media a day, for 20 minutes, you could work on getting your content out there. That means creating the images, writing the post, and then posting all of it. For 20 minutes, you would spend 20 minutes looking at what other respected partners or organizations, that are in the same field as you are saying and sharing their content. And then you'd spend another 20 minutes responding to comments, responding to direct messages, tweeting at people, connecting with people, interacting with people. So now that you've got a tool to create some engaging images and you know how to organize your social media time, let's look at a few of the social media sites and how they differ.
Okay, Brandon, I just want to let you know that we're at 7:25. We've only got about 5 to 10 minutes left.
Oh. Okay.
Okay, let me just ask for people to chime in on chat. Are you all willing to go 15 minutes extra?
Yeah, I can go through this next part pretty quickly.
I'm getting, yes, everybody is saying that they can stay. So Brandon,
Okay.
why don't you continue until 7:30? Everybody, do you want Brandon to continue and need about 15 minutes for questions? Okay, everybody is saying yes. Do that, Brandon. Continue for another 7 to 10 minutes, and then give us a few minutes for questions.
Okay. All right. I will try to get through this very quickly because I know this is information that you guys want. So let's start out with Facebook. And again, you want to understand the differences between these sites because each needs to be used differently. Okay, you don't want to create a post on Instagram and link that to all of your accounts and send that out to all of the different accounts because that's not going to be conducive to building that trust and those relationships that you want. So with Facebook, you're going to want to set up a page. This is going to be your professional Facebook hub where your followers can go and see your posts and learn more information about you. It's always good to have something separate from your personal profile. Facebook uses a newsfeed system. So basically when someone logs into Facebook, they see updates from their friends and the organizations that they like, and that's where you want to be. You want to show up in your supporters' news feeds. Now, Facebook has an algorithm to determine what ends up in your news feed. It recently changed, and they never tell people what it is. So you're just going to need to post and see what works. Try posting at different times. Try posting different things like links, images, videos, text, and see which posts get more engagement. That being said, you don't need to post your content all the time. I would say maybe 2 times a week, 2 to 3 times a week. And notice how I said your content, because you should still go on Facebook and share others' content or comment and like different things. Facebook is really great at engaging your supporters through likes or those recently added emotions emojis, comments, polls, contests, whatever it is. You should really try to get your followers to respond and participate in the conversation, which is
Brandon,
what Facebook is really all about. Yeah.
go ahead and take your time. Everybody is saying they are appreciating this. We will go until 10 till 8, and then we will cut it off.
Okay. Okay, great. So Facebook is really great at engaging your supporters, and it's all about the conversation with Facebook, okay? You should use Facebook to share your blog posts, to share images, videos, all of that, but to start a discussion around them. You want to get people talking. That's the key on Facebook. You want to get people commenting, responding, liking what you're doing, sharing the emotions that they have with those emotions emojis about your content. So with Twitter uses profiles and users have a timeline. So what happens is when one of your followers
I'm sorry, we have a question. Can we go back to Facebook? And this is a question that has to do with several of us. We have personal Facebook pages. But, for example, the Smiths have a page for their ministry called Lucha. It was created under their profile. Is that okay? Should our ministries have a standalone Facebook page? What about our personal page? How does that work together?
Well, let's make sure we're using the terminology correctly. Your profile is your personal profile. A page is not a profile. So a person might have a business page, but they don't have a business profile, right? So yes, you want to set up a page for your ministry because that's really where you're going to be able to keep your professional life separate from the personal things that you do on Facebook. And really the only way that you can do that is to set up a personal account and then create a page. But that's fine. That's how you should do it. So go ahead and set up that page for your ministry. And that's where you're going to be.
And so what you're saying is they both work together.
They both work together because the people that are already in your, are already your Facebook friends are a part of your support network. So you can engage them to come to your page, right? But the page is where you're going to keep all of that stuff related to your ministry. That's where you're going to be posting your content. So you could post that stuff on your page, and then on your personal profile say, hey, take a look at, this new blog post that I just put out, something like that. But you should really engage people through your page, not through your personal profile, because your page, people don't have to be your friends to look at your page. They can just like your page and get that update. So they might want to look at your ministry page, but they might not want to be friends with you on Facebook, and that's okay. You just want to make sure that you have those two things separate. Did that answer the question enough?
Yes,
Okay.
perfectly. We got it.
Good. So for Twitter, Twitter uses profiles and users have a timeline. So basically when one of your followers opens up their Twitter account, they're going to see all of the tweets from the different profiles that they follow, organized by the time they were sent out. Okay? So when you open up your Twitter profile or your Twitter account, you're going to see a ton of different tweets from a ton of different people that you follow, and they're all going to be organized by the time. So the most recent thing that was tweeted is going to be at the top of your timeline. And then the more you scroll down, the further away from that time you're going to see tweets. So your goal here is to get notice on their timeline. So this means that you're going to need to post a bit more frequently than on Facebook and at different times, because people aren't all on Twitter at the same time. You might have people that go on Twitter at 2 o'clock in the morning, and some people that are bored at work, in the afternoon, going on it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So you need to make sure that you're doing it frequently and at varied times. Twitter allows its users to consume massive amounts of information very, very quickly, mostly because it forces users to be succinct in their posts. So you can only have a post that contains 140 characters. That means that you need to get to the point quickly, and sometimes that's not always easy, but you've only got 140 characters, so you got to figure out how to do it. Twitter is also a little less image focused than the other sites, but images can still be very beneficial. But Twitter is really an amazing tool to connect with people. So you want to use it to reach out and interact with supporters and other organizations in the same field as you. You want to tweet them and connect with them, ask them and really interact with them. That's how you're going to build relationships and build that trust through Twitter. I also need to quickly mention hashtags. Hashtags are like labels. They basically help categorize tweets. So when you hashtag something, you make it much more search friendly. So say you're tweeting out your blog about refugees, you could use the hashtag refugee. You definitely should be using hashtags, but be careful not to overdo them. 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 is plenty. There's really, a lot of people get annoyed with a post that has, nothing but hashtags. So remember, you've only got 140 characters. Make use of those. So let's move on to Instagram. Instagram is image focused. Okay, users post images with short captions. The images are really of anything and everything. I read in a book that Instagram, or that variety is the spice of Instagram. It's all about variety. It's about glancing at a picture or watching a short video, liking it, and then if you really, really feel compelled, commenting, and then quickly moving on to the next one. So people are moving quickly through their Instagram feed. Instagram is about exposure. When one of your followers opens up their Instagram, they're going to see a feed populated with posts from all the accounts that they follow. Your goal is to get them to follow you so that you can end up in their feed. When you follow other users or like something that they've posted, then they're going to see that and could then in turn follow you. So you want to make sure that you're reaching out to people and that you're liking things on Instagram if Instagram is one of the networks that you use. And another way to gain exposure is to provide value with your posts. Information is valuable. So you want to use a lot of stats and quotes laid over really engaging pictures. And Canva can help you do that. But that's a really good place to start for Instagram. The more value, the more you'll get noticed, and the more your support network will grow. Instagram also uses hashtags, and they work exactly the same as with Twitter. And they've also recently introduced a new feature called Stories. So these are short video posts that followers can watch. I've not played around with this function a lot yet, but videos are really amazing tools to tell a story, whatever it may be. So if you do end up using Instagram, play around with it, see what it's like, and see if using stories is engaging people. But if you're really interested in using videos to move people to action, then the next social media site is what you're going to want to use. So YouTube. Organizations, companies, and individuals have YouTube channels, and people can subscribe to these channels. YouTube is the video sharing website on the internet, and it has been for many years. It doesn't really have any competitors. So if you want to put video content out there, you need a YouTube channel, and you really should want to have some video content. Video offers you a unique opportunity to engage with your supporters. It opens up a ton of doors to tell so many different stories. You know, you can interview people, tour your facilities, show video from an event you organize, post recorded webinars like this one, but whatever it is, video can draw people in like no other medium can. And if you add a call to action at the end of it, that can be incredibly powerful. So be creative with it and have fun. So you're going to want to use YouTube as a hub for all of your videos. You can post them to your other social networking sites and embed them on your website from YouTube. People really don't go to YouTube very often just to watch videos from the channels that they subscribe to. They usually get there by one of two ways. They either clicked on something on another social network or an email or a website, or they're searching for something specific. Your goal is to bring your supporters to your YouTube channel from other social networks, your email or website, so that they're then drawn to your other video content. Or, you know, you could always produce such amazing content that it goes viral and people around the world go searching for it. You know, the latter is not impossible, but the former is probably a bit more realistic. So, real quick, final thoughts for your social media. You want to make sure that you're open, you're transparent, and that you're yourself. You know, I want to stress authenticity and genuineness. There's really nothing more frustrating than reading, seeing, or watching something on social media that just reeks of superficiality and inauthenticity. Just get creative with things. Express yourself and market your mission. Ton of different ways to engage people. So just try new things and figure out what works best for you. So your action step here is to create a social media post based off of your blog for each of the networks that you're going to be using. The last thing we're going to talk about is email marketing. Email, again, is one of your most powerful tools. It'll consistently drive subscribers to your blog, who will then share your post, which will drive more people to your blog, who will then subscribe to your email, and so on and so forth. You know, it's a cycle. It'll help grow your support network and allow you to stay engaged with your current supporters. I was on a webinar a while ago from somebody I've already mentioned, Heather Mansfield, and she gave some really great email marketing best practices for nonprofits, and I'm going to go over some of them.
Okay, Brandon,
so first, yeah.
We are at 7:39, almost
so
7:40.
what I can do is write this up in a blog post. This could potentially be the first blog post I put out there.
Well,
or I could
everybody really wants more. And so, and I've got some questions here about the website, etc. I think what I'm hearing from everybody here, and guys, please chat and tell me what you think, is that they want more and they're saying, let's add in another webinar. They're loving what you're giving, and we know that I've got some things to share with them. So I am thinking what we need to do right now is say we want Brandon to give another webinar, and I'm watching the chat right now, so you all chime in and say, yes, we want Brandon to continue this with another one, and then I will add in the logistic webinar like we talked about later, about how to do Instagram, how to do Facebook, etc. But what I'm getting right now from everybody is, yes, please, let's do another webinar.
So do
Okay.
y'all want to, what webinar do you want?
Well, let me
To
communicate
figure
with
out what
them.
people want? Okay.
I think basically, okay, um, best practice, what do we use most? Maybe poll everyone. I think, Brandon, what's happened is everybody has loved this. They are overwhelmed. They want to know more. I've heard comments that this is the best social media webinar I've ever had. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so we're positive here, but we're full. We're full of
It's a lot.
information.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot.
So I have one other time slotted. I'm trying to read all of our chats as they come up. I have another time slotted in a couple of weeks, which I will clear with you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say this. We're going to give Brandon a part 2. All of you who have been on this webinar, send to me and Brandon everything you want to know and that this is opened up. I will send it to him. He will be sure to address it in the next one. But right now, do you have a burning question that you want to ask Brandon? And if so, then let's do that. In terms of some of the questions right now that I'm seeing, okay, yes, guys, we're in this as a team. We're going to do this together. We're going to figure out how to do this together. That is a later question. The question right now is for you to glean from Brandon what you need to move forward in social media. So he's put a lot out there in terms of branding, marketing, blogging, the social media presence. What do you want Brandon to say to you now before we cut this off? And let him answer that. And then, Brandon, I am assuming you can be with us another time.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So there are people who are saying, we want to know how to use what we already have, make it work together. Some have said, the light has gone on. We are so happy. The burning questions have been answered. Can we figure out how to do this together? Can we have a follow-up? Can we do the workbook and then have a follow-up with Brandon on the workbook? Can we have a best practice webinar? Should we poll everyone on that? How does the website decrease our workload and yet increase our visibility? Which is a good question, Brandon, because we're revamping our website right now.
That's good, because I looked at it and it could use some revamping, definitely. So
Well,
that's
it
great.
can. The website we have right now is defunct. We're in the middle of revamping.
Okay.
Um, and somebody says, please, can we go deeper? Okay, so Brandon, everybody's loved this, I think. And everybody is saying we didn't need just one webinar from you, we need two.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and stop recording right now unless someone has a burning question that they want to ask Brandon before we stop recording and figure out our next step. Is there a burning question for Brandon right now?
And let me just say, if you guys can't think of something right now, or and you think of something later, you should see all of my contact information up there. Please feel free to reach out to me. Go to Facebook, go to my page on Facebook. If you're on Twitter, reach out to me on Twitter. Go to the website, subscribe to to my mailing list, and just shoot me an email. Just start that conversation. I'd be happy to help you guys, work through any questions or anything you might have. But definitely, please subscribe to my mailing list, because that's how you'll get updated on some of the new blog posts and stuff that I put out there.
That's
so
great.
Yeah, so all of my information's up there.
Thank you.
Brandon,